Well, I am Jesse Vanek, and I'm the Director of Development with Historic Deerfield, and bringing you today's episode of Celebrating Our Ambassadors. So I would like to introduce to you today Debbie Opperman from Westfield, Massachusetts. And Debbie has volunteered for us for a while in the development department for most of the past year, I guess. And she has really been an amazing volunteer who helped us with database projects and mailings and research and really just a whole bunch of stuff in the development office. And so on behalf of my colleagues, Kim and Jess in development, I want to thank Debbie for all of her hard work and say that I'm very, very happy to see her once again. And I'm pleased to share her story with all of our viewers. So welcome, Debbie.
Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here, believe me.
Great. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Debbie, tell me what prompted you to consider volunteering for Historic Deerfield? What first, got that thought going in your head that it would be a place where you might want to help out?
Well, now that we're doing this, I'm hoping that a potential volunteer hears my story and said, that's a slightly different story. Now I know I can do this. In the first quarter of 2019, I lost my full-time job. And at the time, I had enjoyed what I was doing. I was almost 30 years within the municipal and nonprofit sectors. But I also know going forward that I might want to try something a little different. And part of my work had been all about, how do I put this, developing relationships, enhancing relationships in order to sustain an organization. And that sounds really vague and really broad, but in thinking about that, I also knew that part of sustaining an organization was something I really hadn't done that much of before, and that was fundraising. And I know that even that's a broad term, but so I just threw it out there as fundraising. Now, during this time, I also, just before, in fact, I was laid off, I had been attending programs provided by the Association for Fundraising Professionals. And that is where I met you, Jesse. And I remembered meeting you there, and you were very friendly, very open. So when I was thinking about volunteering somewhere in this period where I was unemployed, because I think I'm one of those people that wants to make the most of my unemployment. And to me, unemployment is an opportunity to try out something new, use the skills you already have, but also try out something new. So I had met you, and I'm trying to make this a short story, but when I met you, I thought, you know what, I like history, again, broad category, but I like history and what have you. And here I've met this fundraising professional at a meeting. Why not see if I can get an appointment with Jesse, that's what I was thinking, and propose an exchange of my time volunteering at whatever you could come up with in exchange for some training in something to do with fundraising. And when I met with you, you seemed to be pleased with the idea. You thought it was something we could do. And so that's really how I ended up at Deerfield. I know I'm long-winded, but that's how I ended up at Deerfield.
No, well, that's fantastic. And I thought it was, I appreciated the interest and the idea. And I actually, this is not about my story, but I went through a similar experience years ago. And so I knew exactly where you're coming from and understood the value and the opportunity that you might get in volunteering, and likewise the help that we would get out of your support. So from my perspective, I think it worked out really well. But how about from you? Did you feel like you found it to be an enjoyable situation? And was there anything in particular that sort of stood out as during your time with us?
In all honesty, I couldn't have asked for a better volunteer experience. And I'm not just saying this because we're talking now. I really mean that. I've talked to a lot of people about that. It just seemed like everything aligned. You were willing, first of all, to take me on, and you knew that I wanted something in exchange. You provided me with access to, what do they call it? Customer resource management, Razor's Edge. You provided me with training on that software that I'd never had. That was incredibly valuable to me. And in return, I probably would have done just about anything for Historic Deerfield. So the fact that you needed somebody to do a little prospect research, donor research, and I'm a curious person, and I wanted to learn software and what have you, it was just a great match. So there I am learning in a space, had my own workspace. I'm working with a department that all of you were incredibly friendly, willing to answer questions. And that, let's face it, that can be a bother during the workday, but it never seemed, on my end, it never seemed that you guys were bothered. You were so polite and professional, very nice. So my own space, great staff to work with. Um, yeah, an opportunity to learn software. And let's face it, I was working at Historic Deerfield, and just from, on a side note, it's aesthetically, it's beautiful there. So to drive in every day, I really mean, I couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Well, thank you. I completely agree. And you mentioned visiting Historic Deerfield and the aesthetic value of it, and maybe I'm prompting you with the answer to the next question. Maybe there are other things that you would use to answer it, but is there anything that you particularly miss right now at this time when we're all working from home and from other various situations about Historic Deerfield or the experience there?
Well, from the aesthetic point of view, I mean, where else do you go, or at least for me locally, drive down that main street and see all types of architecture? Again, I love architecture, don't know much about it, but I love it. And because I was there long enough, I saw the seasons change. So I saw everything from summer flowers on different people's lawns with different types of landscaping in a historic, like a historic setting, to the pumpkins and gourds in the fall and around Halloween. And then even the wreaths that I know, there's a whole volunteer contingent making wreaths for wintertime. I miss that, but I just, in general, I just miss this wonderful atmosphere of being able to go in. I could come and go as I please, and everybody was friendly, a smile, a wave, asking me how I'm doing, and they didn't mind me being there. That's big for a volunteer. No, really, you don't feel like you're a bother.
Yeah, well, not a bother at all, Debbie. It was fantastic to have your help, and you really did provide a lot of support to us, and we really appreciate it. I guess I would ask now if you would like to the extent that you want to share details. You opened the conversation talking about why you reached out to volunteer, and it came as a result of a layoff. But I know that there's some good news to share at the end of that story too. So perhaps you could tell a little bit about how this has all played out for you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. The volunteer experience not only gave me the training, but it also, let's face it, it kept me sane during a period of unemployment. And anybody who might listen to this in the future who's worked, and I, at that point, on that professional level, it was 30 plus years that I'd been working. So during the layoff, it gave me a chance to still learn, still hone my skills, and at the same time, look for a job. Let's face it, I'm not independently wealthy. I needed a job. I was able to look for a job, and given my experience with the Razor's Edge and saying that then I could actually put on my resume that I had done some donor or so to say prospect research or what have you. I actually had that skill to put down. You know, anybody reading my resume could see I hadn't been doing it for years, but I had added to my skills base. Well, anyway, I landed a job doing grant management for our local PBS television station and local NEPR radio station. The two of them have now combined, WGBY and NEPR have combined into New England Public Media. So I'm doing grant work, which helps to sustain an organization I believe in. And again, what could be better? But I do really think that part of that wasn't just my grant experience from the past, part of me being interviewed and answering the questions I think successfully in that interview wasn't just about my past experience in what I had been doing prior to Deerfield, but also what I had done in Deerfield. I think that really made a difference, that I could say that I had, even though I wasn't going to be doing it here, the development manager saw that I had trained in that or had some training, was interested in it. I think it spoke volumes about my interest in and dedication to creating some sustainability for an organization I believe in.
Well, fantastic. It sounded like it has worked out really well. And while I am very sorry that we won't be able to have you come and join us during the work days once we are able to get back into the office, I'm thrilled to hear that that it has all worked out well for you. And I absolutely encourage and invite you to think about whether there are other ways around your busy schedule that you might fit in some volunteer time with us on occasion, because we really did enjoy having you, and welcome you back at any time in the development department or wreath making or whatever else it might be. So
Thank you so much. And I hope I can fit it all in too. I really do. Like I said, it was a great experience.
Well, fantastic. Again, thank you. And on behalf of Kim and Jess too, I know that they wanted me to express their appreciation of your work too. So I guess that pretty much does it. So thank you again, and look forward to seeing you, and be well.
The same to you. Thank you. It was terrific to see you.